talking about classical music and jazz and how they're not quite as far apart as they might appear. But what's your theory?
Well, if we sort of take the word jazz out of it, because that we immediately think of saxophones or specific types of jazz. But the idea of free improvisation, and even that's wrong, because jazz isn't free. There are these structures that all good jazz musicians, in most genres anyway, know about, and it's not written down. It's there, and they're improvising within those conventions. Well, improvising, if we go to the classical world, we think of pianists sitting down at a keyboard and improvising a prelude or whatever it is. That's fine. That's one thing. We understand that because all the notes are laid out in front of you on the keyboard and you just select the right one. But what about choral, as it were, or let's say polyphonic improvisation? You've got four singers or more than four singers improvising. That's a big thing because to put it very simplistically, I believe that in the beginning, as it were, there was plain chant. So if we're talking about church music, so everybody that sings is singing that one thing. Okay, then there are different ways of embellishing that. And by the way, to embellish the chant is not to play around with it for fun. Well, it is, as we all know. But in religious terms, theological terms, it's the greater the feast, the more you should embellish it to make it more splendid. So there are rules, but the rules come after the event. If you see what I mean, they're not singing to rules; they're singing within rules that have developed. Where you can sing in two parts. That's easy. Where the one part goes down, you go up, and then you go down again, and so that you're sort of meeting at certain points very conveniently at a cadence or whatever in unison, or in three parts or in four parts. And this goes right through, believe it or not, to the 18th century, where multiple people were improvising. Some spectators or listeners say this is terrible, we don't like this at all, it's bedlam, and other people say, well, actually it's fantastic, and the little sparks, the little things that are, as it were, wrong, make this happen. And then composers had started imitating, writing as if it's improvised. So if you just think about English church music, which most people know, we think of, let's say, Bird, which is beautiful polyphony, but that's not improvised at all. That's every part is carefully constructed to be sort of equal and to mix and to form these wonderful entities. Whereas, if we go back to in the beginning there being chant, there's this world in the middle, and if you look at the Eton choir book music, I don't know whether you know that, or there's a wonderful Scottish composer, Carver, and it's quite different, and early Taverner is as well, music from around 1500, where basically you've just got one harmony, you lock into one big chord for let's say what we call bars for a bit, and then you go into another one, and within that people are just doing things which don't relate to each other. They will all relate to the harmony, but one is going down and the other one goes down dee bum bum or bim ba dum dum, sort of syncopated rhythm against it, and all these things happen simultaneously and are going to work because they're within that simple chord, and then it shifts to another chord and you do similar things. And so it's a continental approach that then came over and English music tidied it up a bit, and you get Tallis, who's got a foot in both areas of music, if you like, and it becomes smoother and smoother to Bird, let's say, which is beautiful in a different way and more similar, if we like, to Palestrina and the continental ones.
And I think going back to Guillaume de Machaut and Parrott and Leontine, is that where that starts, you think?
That's where there's no one way of improvising. There are lots of things where one person could do something incredibly florid against lots of people singing the simple, boring old plain chant. And there's everything in between where three people can do that. So yes, I'm sure that Parrott and Leonard is writing these things down in some form for the first time, and Parrott is capitalising on the fact that they're written down and therefore making them more elaborate or in more parts or something, and so that you can edit out, as it were, before this happened, the things that might go wrong or that won't work, and you can develop the things that really work very well. It gets smoother, if you like. So Machaut is a brilliant composer, and the mass is unusual in that it's in 4 parts. To go up to 4 parts and have each part, well, it's in a way it's 2 pairs of parts. The 2 lower parts are equal and sort of the foundation for the top 2 parts to be more independent. And but improvisation was a huge part. In short, improvisations in all sorts of different ways was a very key part of early music making before it became a sort of specialist thing for jazz.
Do you think today we allow enough of that?
No. If I were setting up a music course now, I would insist that everybody learn things that I'm too old to learn now myself.
Andrew, thank you very much. More to be continued on this subject.